Birth can bring back the Unicorn, and then we have the Unicorn extra deck grip as a 7 interruption and the Birth Graveyard Banish as an 8 interruption. So Tract and Unicorn should add on 8 interruptions. 8 interruptions. Hello and welcome to the video. Today I have a combo guide for Fiendsmith Tearlaments post info. First of all, why should you play Tearlaments? Tearlament's strongest. Not gonna lie, the deck is still really strong and is extremely fun to play. The archetype has literally the strongest engine in the entire game, and it's so strong that Konami had to put severe banlist restrictions on so many Tearlaments cards. But even with all of those banlist restrictions, their archetype is still competitively viable, and I think that speaks for itself.
Just speaks for itself.
Is it something special doing this against Magnusons?
Now the second question, why should you play Fiendsmith cards in Tearlaments? Yeah, there are a couple advantages and disadvantages, let's go over all of them. First of all, the main advantage of the Fiendsmith cards in Tearlaments is that it enables one card Beatrice lines. And Beatrice is such a strong card, especially in Tearlaments, because you have so many good cards that you can send. While the majority of other archetypes have only 1 or 2 good cards to send for Beatrice. Every single card in the Tearlaments archetype except Pearl Rhino has a graveyard effect, so you have infinite good sends with Beatrice in Tearlaments. Also, with those Beatrice lines you have solid 1 card combos and 2 card combos and on 5 or 6 interruptions with absolutely no RNG. And I think that's a huge paradigm shift in Tearlaments, because in the past the deck was known to be a gamble deck, heavily relying on RNG to make solid endboards. And now that's not the case anymore. Now the deck is kinda a graveyard oriented combo pile with clean consistent lines kinda like Phantom Knight. So it's hyper consistent and it enables you to make strong handboards or at least end on Beatrice through handtraps from the opponent. And then Beatrice can use the effect again during the opponent's turn and make fusion summon during the opponent's turn. Also, if you are ever in a position where you need to mill your deck with the Tearlaments cards, then the Fiendsmith engine may also benefit from milling the entire deck, because if you hit Engraver and an additional Light Fiend, for example the Lurrie, or a second copy of Engraver, then you can use the graveyard effect of Engraver to shuffle back the other Light Fiend and special summon itself. And this is how you can access the Fiendsmith engine by milling the deck. And I think Fiendsmith has a huge synergy with mill decks in general. Also, Fiendsmith has a little bit utility going second, because you can use the effect of Requiem to equip it to Engraver from the graveyard, and then you can use the effect of Engraver to send one monster from the opponent to the graveyard. So the Fiendsmith engine by itself trades with one monster on the endboard of the opponent, or at least forces out an imperm, which is really strong compared to other engines that you could play in Tearlaments. For example, the Shadow engine has the Shadow Fusion as a potential blowout card for going second, but that's kinda it. The Horrors cards and the Destiny Hero cards don't have nearly the same utility going second. And if you ever enter a grind game with Fiendsmith Tearlaments, then the Fiendsmith cards provide you with huge graveyard follow-up in a grind game, because you can shuffle back a Light Fiends every single turn for Engraver and then special summon back Engraver. You can also use your Ishiza shufflers to shuffle back the Beatrice and then make Beatrice again in the next turn. Also, Fiendsmith has a really solid starter to brick ratio, which is around 5:1, so every single Engraver is a starter, and the 2 Tractors that you would play are also a 1 card starter now with the Necroku Princess. And the only brick in the engine is the Fabled Lurrie. However, Fabled Lurrie isn't a hard brick, because you can still do a little bit of combos even if you draw the Fabled Lurrie. It's not nearly as bad as a brick compared with other bricks like Trivikama or Harpy in the Horrors engine. And Fiendsmith always wins in timeout, because Lacrima enables you to burn the opponent for 1200 damage. That means you don't have to play Volcanic Scattershot anymore and you have 1 additional side deck slot. But the Fiendsmith engine has also some downsides. For example, it's kinda weak to buy steals, but it's kinda neutral, because if the opponent is ever forced to buy steal the Fiendsmith cards, then the opponent won't have buy steals to stop the Tear Girls, and your Tearlaments monsters can resolve. So I count this weakness as neutral. The more severe disadvantages are that Light Fiend is not an attribute type combination that you can use to fusion summon with your Tearlament girls. Usually you wanna play non-engine cards that are either dark or aqua, so you can use them to fusion summon into Muddragon or Kaleidoheart or Garura, but it is not possible with the Fiendsmith monsters, because all of them are Light Fiend. Also, the Fiendsmith engine plays into Droll, which is not that great for Tearlaments, because people who side Droll, they will side in Droll most of the times against Tearlaments. However, you could argue that an additional weakness to Droll is kinda like pissing into an ocean, and it won't change that much in the grand scheme of things. The deck is still able to make decent endboards even if the opponent draws you. You just need to draw a little bit more engine than without Droll. And the last downside of the Fiendsmith engine is that it requires huge extra deck commitments, like 4 to 5 slots. You need 1 Requiem, 1 Sequence, 1 Lacrima, 1 Moon of the Closed Heaven, and probably 1 Necroku Princess too. So those are 4 or 5 slots. I don't count Beatrice as an extra deck commitment because this card was already played in the Destiny Hero Tearlaments before. So not an additional new card that you need to put in your extra deck to make the deck work. It is already played in Destiny Hero Tearlaments. But I think in general the advantages are much stronger compared to the disadvantages. And right now Fiendsmith is probably the best engine that you could play in Tearlaments. Now before I start with the combo guide, I want to talk about some rulings that might come up with Tearlaments. First of all, we need to talk about conjunctions. Fortunately, there is already an article on YG Organization Learn Rulings Part 5 that explains you how conjunctions work. There are 5 conjunctions. Also after that, and if you do, then, and. So those are the 5 conjunctions, and all of them help you to explain how effects work, and all of them work slightly differently. So for example, with also and also after that, A is not required for B. That means if you cannot resolve the part A, then you can still resolve B. However, with and if you do, and then it's kind of different. So A is required for B to resolve. So only if you can resolve A, then you can resolve B. However, if you can resolve only A and something happens that prevents you from resolving B, then the effect resolves as much as possible. And this comes up with a bunch of Tearlaments cards because those have the conjunctions, and if you do, then. So for example, Scheiren has the effect. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, send 1 monster from the hand to the graveyard. Then send the top 3 cards from the deck to the graveyard. So for example, if we use Scheiren and the opponent decides to chain Mind Crush, then Scheiren is no longer in the hand, we cannot special summon Scheiren, and then we can't resolve the other parts of the effect like sending 1 monster from the hand to the graveyard and then milling 3. This is not possible if the opponent chains Mind Crush. If the opponent chains Dimension Shifter, then we can still resolve the effect of Scheiren to special summon herself from the hand, and we try to send 1 monster from the hand to the graveyard, but under Dimension Shifter, that monster that we are going to send to the graveyard is hitting the banish pile and not the graveyard. Therefore, A cannot resolve because we cannot send the monster to the graveyard. That means we are not going to send in the top 3 cards from the deck to the graveyard. So if you have Scheiren and the only other monster in your hand that you could send for Scheiren is Tearlament's Kashtira, then you can use both of the effects. So you can use Scheiren chaining 1 and then Tearkash chaining 2, special summon the Tearkash, banish 1 Kashtira or 1 Tearlaments cards from the hand to the graveyard. So Tearkash resolves completely normal and then Scheiren resolves as much as possible. So we can resolve the effect of Scheiren to special summon herself from the hand. But because we got rid of Tearkash, which was the only card in the hand that we could send for Scheiren, then we cannot send the monster from the hand to the graveyard, and we can also not mill 3 with Scheiren. But we still get to summon our 2 bodies. So we get to summon the Tearkash and we get to summon the Scheiren. And this interaction might come up even more post-info because with any 2 bodies, for example Scheiren and Tearkash, you can go into the Fiendsmith combo. Therefore you really want to have 2 bodies on the board that you can use as a link material. Now the second interaction I want to talk about is Tearlament's Rhinoheart, which has the effect if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field, and if you do, send 1 Tearlaments cards from the hand to the graveyard. So if we mill the Rhinoheart with a card like Scream and we go Rhinoheart chaining 1, Tearkash chaining 2, then we resolve the Tearkash completely normal by special summoning herself and then banishing 1 Tearlaments cards or 1 Kash card from the hand or the graveyard. And then we also resolve the Rhinoheart as much as possible by special summoning the Rhinoheart, but we cannot resolve the part or sending 1 Tearlaments card from the hand to the graveyard, because we got rid of our only Tearlaments card, which was the Tearlaments Kashtira in the hand. And this interaction should come up very often if you play Tearlaments. So for example, if you have Grief and Tearlaments Kashtira, then you can go Grief, special summon the Rhinoheart, send the Rhinoheart, then Rhinoheart chaining 1, Tearkash chaining 2, and you have the Grief in the graveyard that you could banish for the Tearkash, then you special summon the Tearkash, then you special summon the Rhinoheart. Another Tear card that works similar to Rhinoheart is Heartbeat, which has the effect target 1 spell trap on the field, or you can target 2 if you control Weezer Starfrost, shuffle them into the deck, then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. So if we activate Tearlament's Heartbeat and the only other card in our hand is Tearlament's Kashtira, then we can use Tearkash as a chaining 2, special summon the Tearkash, and then resolve Heartbeat as much as possible by shuffling back the card from the opponent, but we cannot perform the send 1 card from the hand to the graveyard, because we got rid of our only remaining card in the hand. Also, if we use Heartbeat on the back row of the opponent, and the back row is a normal trap or a quick play spell, for example the Wanted Seeker of the Sinful Spoils, and the opponent decides to chain the Wanted Seeker of the Sinful Spoils, then the Wanted is marked as being sent to the graveyard, and cards that are already marked as sent to the graveyard cannot be shuffled back into the deck with the Heartbeat. That means we cannot resolve, shuffle it into the deck, and then we can also not send one card from the hand to the graveyard. So if the opponent chains a normal trap or a quick play spell to Heartbeat, then we don't send one card from the hand to the graveyard with Heartbeat. Also, if the opponent has a card like Salamangreat Roar, which has the effect banish it when it leaves the field, then you banish it when it leaves to the field, it will override to shuffle it into the deck from Heartbeat. So if you use Heartbeat on Salamangreat Roar, then Salamangreat Roar gets banished by its own effect, and therefore we also do not send one card from the hand to the graveyard for Heartbeat. So keep those interactions in mind if you play Tearlaments. Now let's look into the Fiendsmith Tear combos. Alright, now let's start with combo number 1, the most simple combo. Here we have just Engraver. We discard Engraver, add Tract, then Tract, add Lurrie, discard Lurrie, Lurrie special summon itself. Link Lurrie into Requiem, Requiem Tribute to summon Engraver from the deck. Then Engraver, shuffling back the Requiem, and it's really important that you shuffle back the extra deck monsters in Tearlaments, because you don't want to shuffle back bad mills into your main deck, for example Fabled Lurrie, if your goal is to mill cards from the main deck later in the combo. And then we make Beatrice, and this is on summon number 5. So summon number 1, Lurrie, then Requiem summon number 2, Engraver summon number 3, Engraver from the graveyard summon number 4, and then Beatrice on summon 5. So we get to send at least one card from the deck with Beatrice before the opponent has the opportunity to nip us. And this combo is pretty solid if we play against an opponent who has the habit of drawing Nibiru pretty early. What you send with Beatrice depends on the rest of your hand, but you get to send at least one card with Beatrice before the opponent can nip you. Now let's go into the second combo, the full combo, which is even stronger and ends on 6 interruptions with just one single card, but it plays pretty hard into Nibiru. So it's time to put the opponent on better habit, otherwise the opponent has to deal with really strong endboard. So we start with Engraver, add the Tract, then Tract discard Lurrie, Lurrie special summon itself. Then we link Lurrie into Requiem, Requiem Tribute to summon Engraver from the deck. And then here we equip the Requiem to the Engraver, and then we contact fuse the Requiem and the Engraver into a nawcq Princess, the new TCG exclusive. I already made a video about the nawcq Princess. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. Now let's continue with the combo. So we put back the Requiem into the extra deck to summon Engraver, and then here is where we link those into a sequence. Then sequence shuffle back the Lurrie and Engraver to summon Lacrima. Then Lacrima effect, which can summon back the Engraver from the graveyard, and here we go into Beatrice. Then Beatrice sent Drivicama, banish Drivicama at the Perla Rhino at Rhino Heart. Then normal summon Rhino Heart, effect to send Halfness, Halfness effect, put back nawcq Princess, which is a non-aqua dark, so we can summon Mud Dragon, and then we can make Bahamut Shark. Now Bahamut Shark, detach, summon Totally Awesome, and then we use the Totally Awesome and the sequence as a link material for Sprite Sprint. And then Sprint effect, send a Merly graveyard effect to fusion summon, and here we can put back Merly Totally Awesome and the Rhino Heart to fusion summon Tearlament's Kaleido Heart. And then we get the Perla Rhino, which can pop Kaleido Heart summons itself back, and we send the Scream at Sullick. And during the opponent's turn we have a couple interruptions. So we have Beatrice, which cancels the Shuffler, then we have Sullick as a monster negate, Sullick cancels the Kaleido Heart comes back, sends a tier card and shuffles one card from the opponent back. So we get the Halfness, which can fusion summon. The fusion summon leads into the Registapelia, which leads into a Pearl Rhino pop, and the Registapelia is another monster negate. And then we have Sprite Sprint, which can detach one material from Bahamut Shark to bounce one monster from the opponent if the opponent special summons a monster. And we also have the Modora Shuffle as Graveyard Interruption. So 6 interruptions with just one single card. Pretty strong endboard. Now let's go into the third combo. Here we have Engraver and any aqua monster. I think a great aqua monster you could main deck is the Mujami Perilia. So we start with Engraver, add the Tract, then Tract discard Lurrie, Lurrie special summon itself. Link it to Requiem, Requiem summon Engraver. Engraver equip with the Requiem and then contact fuse into nawcq Princess. Then Engraver shuffle back the Requiem and then link those two into sequence. Sequence shuffle back Lurrie, Engraver, summon Lacrima bring back Engraver. Send Drivicama banish, add Pearl Rhino at Rhino Heart. Then Rhino Heart, send Halfness effect to fuse, put it back nawcq, make Mud Dragon, again pretty similar lines. And now this time we are going to use the Bahamut Shark as a link material and not the Totally Awesome, because we have an aqua monster in the hand that we can use to fusion summon into Kaleido Heart. So Sprite Sprint, send the Merly. The Merly fusion summon and putting back the Mulchami. By the way, you could also drop the Mulchami at the start of your combo, so if the opponent wants to drop a Nib or a Bysteel on you, then you get one draw from those cards, even though you go first. So we make the Kaleido Heart here, then Pearl pop Kaleido, Kaleido Heart comes back, sends Scream, we add Sulliek. And we add on 6 Interruptions, but this time the endboard is even stronger, because we can keep the Totally Awesome on the endboard and have this as an Omni Negate against any card from the opponent. So we have to decide if we want to use the Beatrice Material to send a Shuffler, or if we want to use the Beatrice Material to bounce with Sprint. We get only one of those interruptions, but we still have 6 interruptions, and this time we have an Omni Negate within those 6 interruptions. And we might also have Graveyard Follow-up with the Totally Awesome if we get to send Tearlament's Kashtira to the graveyard if we have even more extenders. Now combo number 4, here we have just Tract and nothing else. So we start with the Tract, add Lurrie, discard Lurrie, Lurrie special summon itself. Then link into Requiem, summon Engraver. Then equip the Requiem to Engraver, and then here we go into Necromancer Princess. And then Engraver, shuffle back the Requiem, special summon itself. Then Beatrice send Rivicama banish, search Pearl Rhino at Rhino Heart, normal summon Rhino Heart. Rhino Heart and Toughness, put back, make Mud Dragon, and then Totally Awesome. And here we have 3 interruptions, just with one single Tract and nothing else. Those interruptions are Omni Negate, then we have Beatrice, which can send a Tearlaments monster, which can then fuse into Dragostapelia, 1 Pearl Rhino pop, and 1 Dragostapelia negate, and a Totally Awesome negate. So 3 interruptions during the opponent's turn with just one single Tract and nothing else. But what happens if we have Tract and any extender? And this extender could be any card that can special summon itself, for example any Kashtira card, Razorf, which can search Kashtira cards, Scheiren, Pearl Rhino, which can search Scheiren, or any danger. Also Bysteels would work as extender for this combo. So let's look into the Tract combo with any extender. We start with the Unicorn because we have to special summon this first. Before we go Tract into Lurrie, the Lurrie special summon itself. Then we go Unicorn at birth. And then link into Moon of the Closed Heaven. And then Moon of the Closed Heaven into Requiem. Then Requiem Tribute, summon Engraver from the deck. Then equip to Engraver, and then we go into Necromancer Princess again. Then Engraver, shuffle back the Moon of the Closed Heaven, and then special summon back the Engraver. And then we go into Sequence, and then Sequence, shuffle back the Requiem and the Lurrie to summon the Lacrima, summon Engraver. And then we go into Beatrice. Beatrice send Rivicama banish itself, search Pearl Rhino, add the Rhino Heart. Rhino Hearts and Toughness. And then we go into Mud Dragon, make the Bahamut Shark, make Totally Awesome, and then we link those two into Sprint again. Then Sprint, send Merly to fuse into Kaleido Heart by using herself, Rhino Heart and Totally Awesome. Pearl Rhino pop Kaleido Heart special summon itself, send the Scream, add Sulliek. And here we have 6 interruptions with just 1 Tract and any extender. And we might have even more interruptions depending on the extender. So if we started with the Unicorn, then we still have the Birth. Birth can bring back the Unicorn, and then we have the Unicorn Extra Deck Grip as a 7 interruption and the Birth for Graveyard Banish as an 8 interruption. So Tract and Unicorn should add on 8 interruptions. 8 interruptions. And if you have Fenrir over Unicorn, then you go Fenrir, search the Tier Cache. And then Tier Cache can banish the Fenrir, and then we get to mill 3 with the Tier Cache. And if we mill a Shuffler, then we might also have 7 interruptions with Fenrir instead of Unicorn. So pretty solid endboard for just Tractus and any extender. But what happens if we have just the Fabled Lurrie and any tier cut? So this looks like a brick, right? But it's only a brick for those of you who are not subscribed to my channel yet. So if you don't wanna lose with hands like this anymore, better subscribe to my channel right now. So we have Lurrie the brick in this deck, and we can use the Lurrie to go into Requiem by normal summoning Lurrie. Then Requiem into Engraver. And then equip the Engraver with the Requiem, and then we go into Necromancer Princess. And then Engraver, and then we go into Beatrice. And this time with the Sulliek or just any tier card in the hand, we can send the Rhino Heart. Yeah, we cannot go into Rivicama and then Pearl Rhino because we already normal summoned the Lurrie. This is kind of unfortunate, but we can still do a little bit. So Rhino Heart, special summon itself, then send the Sulliek. And then we get to search with the Sulliek, and we get to send with the Rhino Heart. So we send the Halfness, then Halfness can fusion summon into Mud Dragon by putting back the Necro Grip. And then Bahamut Shark can bring out the Totally Awesome. And now we have the Tier Cache, which can mill 3 cards. We hit nothing, but we could theoretically mill a shuffler here, and then the shuffler would be another interruption. And then we end on SP, Totally Awesome, and Beatrice, which can make either Dragostapelia or Kaleidoheart during the turn of the opponent. So we have 3 interruptions even though we bricked. And we might have even more interruptions depending on the mills from the tier cache. So we get a mill 3 once, and then we get to add back a tier cache with Totally Awesome, and we get to mill 3 again. So we get to mill 6 cards in this combo, and Tearlaments should be able to establish 4 or 5 interruptions if we get to mill 6 in this deck. Now let's look into the more advanced combos. Here we have Engraver and Fenrir, which can make double rank 6. So we start with the Fenrir, then Engraver, discard, search the Tractors, then Tractors, discard, search the Lurrie. And then Lurrie special summon itself, Fenrir search the tier cache, and then Requiem, tribute itself, special summon Engraver. And then Engraver graveyard effect, put back the Requiem, special summon itself. And here we go into Pilgrim Reaper, which is a mill 5 for both players' decks. So KNOW and yugioh are banned because they mill 5 from the Tearlaments deck. And this card is literally KNOW or yugioh. So Pilgrim Reaper, mill 5. We milled pretty decent here, but let's say we hit absolutely nothing with the Pilgrim Reaper, just for the purpose of this combo tutorial. So we mill 5 blankets that don't do anything in the graveyard with the Pilgrim Reaper, but it's not over yet. We can still combo even harder with the setup. So we link those two into Moon of the Closed Heaven, then special summon the tier cache by banishing the Fenrir, and then we get to mill 3 again. And there we go into sequence, and then sequence, put back the Moon of the Closed Heaven and the Engraver to special summon Lacrima. And then Lacrima, special summon back Engraver, and then we go into Beatrice, which is the second rank 6. Then Beatrice into Trivicama into Pearl Rhino at Rhinoheart. And then Rhinoheart in Halfness, make the Mud Dragon by putting back the Pilgrim Reaper. So for this combo line, you don't even need to make the Necroku Princess, you can use the Pilgrim Reaper as a dark for the Mud Dragon. And then we overlay into Bahamut Shark, and then Bahamut Shark summon Totally Awesome, and then use Totally Awesome and sequence to go into Sprint. And then Sprint up Merle fusion summon into Kaleidoheart. So we make the Kaleidoheart here, then Pearl Rhino pop Kaleidoheart comes back, sends Scream, we add Sullic. And by the way, I just assumed that we hit absolutely nothing with the mill 8 that we get in this combo, but even if we hit something like for example the Sullic, then we can use the Sullic to search Scheiren, and we have an aqua in the hand that we can use to go into Kaleidoheart. So we can keep the Toad on the board. So if you hit any aqua or the Sullic with the mill 8 in this combo, then you can keep the Totally Awesome on the board, which provides you with an Omni Negate as the 6th interruption instead of either the Beatrice Send or the Sprint Bounce. So we could mill a Shuffler, which would be the 7th interruption, or we could also mill into a Sullic and an Aqua monster. That means we can use Sullic to search into Scheiren, and then we can use the Scheiren effect to special summon herself by discarding one other monster from the hand. Then we have Scheiren as a body that we can use to link summon the Sprint. And then we can keep the Totally Awesome on the board and the Bahamut Shark. So we can keep the Beatrice material under it, and we get to use the Sprint Bounce and the Beatrice Send. So if we mill a Shuffler, Sullic, and any Aqua monster, for example the Mulchummy, then we end on 8 interruptions with just 2 cards. But I think in general this line with the Pilgrim Reaper is kinda win more, so you might not want to play it because it requires you to give up 1 extra deck space for the Pilgrim Reaper. Now finally combo number 8. And if you enjoy my style of content and want to see more Tearlaments videos, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, that helps me a lot. Now let's go into the combo. So here we have Scheiren, Unicorn, and any monsters we can discard for Scheiren. By the way, it also works if we have Pearl Rhino, because then Pearl Rhino could search the Scheiren. So we start with the Unicorn at the birth. Then Scheiren, discard the Modora, mill 3, the mills doesn't really matter here. So we link into Moon of the Closed Heaven and then go into Requiem. Then Requiem Tribute, summon Engraver, and then equip, make Necroku Princess, and then Engraver put back the Moon of the Closed Heaven, and we go into Moon of the Closed Heaven again. And this time we use the Birth to summon back the Unicorn, and then we go into sequence here. So sequence, shuffle back the Moon of the Closed Heaven and the Requiem to summon the Lacrima. And then we can use the effect of Lacrima to summon back the Engraver from the graveyard. And then we go into Beatrice here. So for this combo it's really mandatory that you go into Moon of the Closed Heaven twice, therefore you need 3 bodies, and Unicorn plus Fenrir provides you with 3 bodies. Now we go Beatrice and Trivikammer at Pearl Rhino at Rhinoheart. Rhinoheart dump Havness to fuse. And we make Muddragon summon totally awesome. And then we use the Bahamut Shark and the sequence to go into Sprint. And because we started with the Scheiren, we have the Scheiren as an aqua in the graveyard that we can use to make Kaleidoheart. So Scheiren, Merly, Rhinoheart into Kaleidoheart. And then we pop the Kaleidoheart summons itself back. And then we get to send a Scream can search Sullick. And by the way, if we hit Tier Cache with the Milfree from Scheiren, then we could use Totally Awesome to add back the hypothetic Tier Cache and then summon Tier Cache during the opponent's turn by banishing the Unicorn. And then we have the Birth Graveyard Banish as a 7th interruption against the opponent. Also, if we mill Scream with the Milfree from Scheiren, then we can search the Sullick immediately. But for the purpose of this combo tutorial, I pre-assumed that we hit absolutely nothing. But if you would hit a Scream here, then we can use the Kaleidoheart to send a Sullick from the deck, and then Sullick can add the Tier Cache. And then we also access the Tier Cache as a cache tier monster which makes the Birth live, and we can use the Birth as a graveyard interruption as a 7th interruption during the opponent's turn. But in general, if you have any 2 bodies that you can put on the board without committing your normal summon, then you should be able to end on at least Beatrice, and if you have any 2 bodies that you can special summon and a Scheiren, then you should end on this end board. So those are the combos that you should know if you want to play Fiendsmith Tearlaments. Now let's look into a replay and then we go into potential deck profiles. Alright, now let's look into a match of Fiendsmith Tearlaments against a meta deck. Here we play on Raid DB against Gimmick Puppet. I lost the RPS, so I have to go second. And my opponent is on 42 cards, so this could be literally anything just based on the number of cards. I shotgun the Mulchami in the draw phase. My opponent goes Immunity, searches the Sark, and then a Rogue Doll. So Rogue Doll revealing, then special summon itself, gives me 1 Mulchami draw. The Little Soldiers dump the Kettle Scream, then the Terror Baby, then Foolish into Biscuit Doll, then Machinix into the rank up. And theoretically my opponent should FTK me here, but I have the Druid Swarm and I should be able to stop the FTK with the Druid Swarm. So going for the service puppet play here, then Kettle Scream, then Horus, then this one, then adding back the rank up. And giving me the Kettle Scream for the burn. Then Fentex Machina. Usually I would chain the Druid Swarm here to prevent this card from coming back, but I can't respond to the effects because of the Terror Baby. So really rough spot for me. Now I hope that my opponent messes up, and for some reason my opponent doesn't have the FTK here. So going for the Sark, dump the Harpy, and then set 2 cards, the Service Puppet and the Imperm. So I survive with 2900 life points, and now I have to go second against Gimmick Puppet. I start with the Unicorn because this is supposed to be a bait, and let's see if my opponent catches the bait. My opponent Imperms the Unicorn. Then I go normal summon Fabled Lurrie, and now I could go into the Requiem and start with the Fiendsmith stuff. And here's our opponent decides to use the Service Puppet. So Service Puppet stealing both. And now my field is empty, so I can special summon the Fenrir. So my plan worked out for me here. So Fenrir searching the Tier Cache. And then I had to make a huge decision here, so I went Scheiren, discard Tier Cache, and then I milled Sullick, Rhinoheart, and Tract. So it worked out perfectly for me here, because now I have the Rhinoheart in a graveyard, and now I can dump the Merle from my hand. So Rhinoheart, Sullick. But to be honest, milling the Fiendsmith would also be roughly the same here, because I have so many different ways how I can access my engine. My opponent tries to Unicorn rip me, but Unicorn is under Imperm. So nice attempt from my opponent, but it just doesn't work out. And I decided to not use Merle here, so that I can go Sprint later into the combo if I really need to go into Sprint, and then use Merle when I dump her with the Sprint. So just Rhinoheart, and then Rhinoheart dumping the Havness. Then Havness putting back Merle, herself, and the Rhinoheart to make Kaleidoheart. Now Kaleidoheart shuffled back the Harpy, and now I can start to crack the rest of the board. So here we go into Tier Cache. Banish the Sullick, and then blink 3. I hit the Scream, which just gives me a Sullick follow-up, but it doesn't matter because I have lethal here. So I go into Moon of the Closed Heaven, try to use this as link material. Then Druid Swarm, getting rid of the Kettle Stream, and now Underworld Goddess by using both of those XYZ bodies as a link material, and my own Moon of the Closed Heaven. The Druid Swarm, get rid of the Unicorn, and now I have Lethal. So I announce battle phase and my opponent decides to scoop the game. So I think that was a really great showcase of Tearlaments game 1, now game 2. And here I have Mulchami again, but it's probably going to be only one draw. So opponent starting with the Horror's Field spell. Interesting, but makes perfectly sense in this deck because you play Terror for me, so you can search this card. Then Foolish Burial into the Rogue Doll, so Rogue Doll should be able to access the Gimmick Puppet engine. And now a top deck into Fenrir, the Little Soldiers, Machinix, adding the rank up, then rank up into Fentix Machinix, then bring back the Immunity on my side, and now I get burned for the Immunity. I was trying to use the Druid Swarm here, but then I read over the card and it says special summon, but it doesn't target. So not the greatest spot for me to use the Druid Swarm here. I just have to load it and let my opponent continue with the combo. Now going into the Gimmick Puppet of Strings, adding back the rank up, and then rank up into the C number 14. And here's where I use the Druid Swarm on the Machinix, because I think this is a great choke point of the deck, and when I get rid of the Machinix, my opponent can't summon a second Fantix Machinix anymore. So I should be able to survive the FTK here, and yeah, this is exactly what happens. When my opponent top decks into the field spell, and now field spell, yeah, makes the Gimmick Puppet monsters unaffected except for XYZ's monsters. Then I get hand tripped and lose my Farrier, which is completely fine for me, because Farrier was already dead in the hand. My opponent should have probably picked the Grief or the Scheiren. Then set one pass, and now Lurrie. Again, opponent is basically forced to use the Service Puppet here. Otherwise, I can use the Lurrie to access the Requiem, get rid of the Harpy, and then I have my full Fiendsmith engine going. Actually, yeah, it would be so bad if my opponent allows me to keep the Lurrie on the board, because then I could use the Fiendsmith and overlay immediately into Beatrice with the Druid Swarm that I already have in the field. And I think this is an example why Byseals as a non-engine in this deck work perfectly well, because we can go into Beatrice with every single Byseal that we drop on the opponent. So Grief into Rhinoheart. Then Rhinoheart summon itself, discard the Salik, then Salik Rhinoheart. Here I add tier cache, then dump the tier cache, mill 2. Okay, I milled Modora, cool. But I just wanted to get one Tearlaments monster in a graveyard that I can maybe shuffle back later with the Modora to get the Pearl Rhino pop. And then I mill the Trivikama, which is nice for me. But if I don't mill my Trivikama here, I should have still Trivikama access with Beatrice later in the combo. But milling Trivikama is pretty nice for me here, so I can go Pearl Rhino, grab the tier cache for follow-up, then make Moon of the Closed Heaven, using the Druid Swarm to clear the Harpy, then Moon of the Closed Heaven into the Fabled Lurrie. And then again, Underworld Goddess using both monsters of my opponent, which is a perfectly legal play. If people ask you if this is even possible, yes, this is perfectly legal. And then using this one to go into Requiem. Then Requiem into Fiendsmith. And here I had an interesting line. So I could use the Engraver to set my own Scheiren and then make Kaleido Heart here. But I figured out it's probably smarter to go into Necroquip Princess first, then make Beatrice, and then Beatrice send Havness. And then use the Havness to go into Kaleido Heart. And if I can resolve my combo until the end, then I should have Beatrice, Kaleido Heart, Planet could pop the Scheiren, and then Scheiren could fuse into Registapelia. And this is lethal on board. So I go for Necroquip Princess here because I have lethal if this line would resolve. But my opponent hits me with the Druid Swarm on the Engraver here, which is really unfortunate because I needed this one to resolve to make my Beatrice. Yeah, now I'm in a rough spot, but I've still the Modora, so Modora can shuffle back follow up from my opponent and my own tier cache. So I get to pop my Scheiren, and then Scheiren can fusion summon into Kaleido Heart. And then Kaleido Heart spin back the Sark because this is probably the biggest threat on my opponent's board right now. And then battle phase, my opponent is basically forced to get rid of the Necroquip Princess. Otherwise, Kaleido Heart comes just back and allows me to dump one tier card. And my opponent top decked Immunity, which is absolutely huge because now my opponent has access to the Horus engine again. Yeah, so really amazing top deck from my opponent. Otherwise, I should probably be in a winning position here. Yeah, now Rogue Doll, and then making this one, and here is where I go tier cache. and I mill into Lurrie. So now I can go Kaleido Heart 1, Lurrie 2, and then make it Register Pelia. Kaleido Heart can shuffle back the Fiendsmith from my opponent. And now I can pop one monster from the opponent, and I can use Register Pelia to negate the monsters from my opponent. And the Gimmick with monsters from my opponent would be unaffected if my opponent had still access to the field spell, so I had to get rid of the field spell to make Register Pelia alive. So Rhino popping this one, and now I completely forgot about the Biscuit doll, so I'm forced to shotgun the Register Pelia here. Now this one is a level 1 and my opponent can't make a rank 8 with this one. And now going into the Link. So Link access the little soldiers. And then Imcity. Yeah, having the Imcity here is so rough. Yeah, now Imcity, then discard the Magnamut, go into the strings. Then this one comes back. My opponent gets back the Chaos Force, and then this one can pop on Register Pelia for some burn damage. I barely survive because this one is planet boosted, so I take only 200 and not 700. And then I top deck evenly match, and this top deck is completely garbage, so nothing to be done here, and I lose this game. Yeah, in end phase I still take the burn damage from the Gimmick of strings, and this is game. Now game 3, and I can go first. And here I have Engraver, Tract, and an Aqua, so this should be full combo. So we go Tract first in case the opponent has Troll. Then Lurrie special summon itself, Lurrie into Requiem, Requiem into Engraver. Equip, make Necrocrypt Princess, then Engraver discard. And here is where we can use the effect of Necrocrypt Princess. So we discarded a monster from the hand to activate the effect. That means we can draw one card. I top it into Magnamut, which is really nice. So I go into the sequence here. Kinda risky, but to be honest, if my opponent would hand trip me here, then I have still normal summon Woodora, then Magnamut, and then Link into Moon of the Closed World, and then I can make Lurrie again, even if my opponent would Veiler me here on this spot. So risky line, but I can still extend even if my opponent would hand trip me here, and then 3 Karma at the Pearl Rhino, then Pearl Rhino at Rhino Heart. So basically textbook combos here, that Rhino Heart, dump the Scheiren because I have my Halfness in the hand, and then Scheiren put back the Necrocrypt, make the Muddragon, make Toad, and then sprint, dump Lurrie, and now I can use Halfness in the hand to make Kaleido Heart, Planet Pop Kaleido Heart, dump Scream, and here is where I search a crime, because I have the Skill Drain, and Skill Drain is such a dumb floodgate on its own, so if I have anything that can protect my Skill Drain against Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, or even damage from my opponent, I can just negate any Skill Drain pops with the crime. So absolutely disgusting, and I even have Modora, which is a nice crime discard, and I have the Magnamut, so I should be absolutely winning here. My opponent starts with Terraform into the field spell, which is kinda rough because the field spell makes his stuff unaffected, but I should be able to deal with all of that with Skill Drain. And now the Service Puppet, and this card would be a Foolish Burial for 5. I don't want to give my opponent a Foolish Burial for 5, so I have to negate this one with my Totally Awesome, and then my opponent continues. Never mind, I add back the Bahamut Shark just in case I can shuffle back the Totally Awesome, and then I can make Bahamut Shark again into Totally Awesome, maybe in the future, if I get into a grind game. So going for the Rogue Doll, and then I completely forgot that this one dumps for cost, so it was kind of stupid to chain the Skill Drain here. Yeah, I could have probably waited, so I went Skill Drain, and then I had to chain a Beatrice, because otherwise Beatrice will be negated by Skill Drain. So Beatrice, sending Scheiren, and then Scheiren 1, Lurrie 2, putting back the sequence, and then Muddragon, make Register Pelia, and I pop the field spell from opponent. So those monsters are no longer unaffected, and my opponent can also not use the second effect to detach one Exceed material and give me a Gimmick Puppet on my side. Yeah, then going into this one, trying to rank up, I crime negate this, and now it's game, and my opponent rage quitted. Yeah, so I won the game 2-1, even though I had to go second against an FTK deck, and I think this match was a great showcase of this deck, and I hope you can see why Fiendsmith Tearlaments is really powerful in the current meta. Finally, I want to give you deck profiles for decks that I use to make this combo tutorial. So here we have the first version of the deck with the Kashtira cards and Bysters in the main deck. I think the Fiendsmith engine is so much smaller than the Horus engine. That means you can play much more non-engine. For example, 3 Mulchummy in the main deck and also 3 Forbidden Droplet. And 1 Called by the Grave, which also works as a going second card if you play against Yubel, because you can use this card to negate the Phantom of Yubel. And it could also work against Snake Eye, because this card can deal with the Promethean Princess. But in general, if you want to beat 10 drops, Called by pretty nice right now. You could also cut the Shadow Beast from the main deck and play a Bestial Baldrake instead, or put the Keldo on the main deck. But this deck has basically shuffler access all the time, because you can go Beatrice, dump Mudora during the opponent's turn, and for this reason you can get away with only 1 shuffler, but you can still play 2 shufflers in the main deck if you want. And in the extra deck I play Winder, and this card is probably the only flex spot that the deck has right now. All other cards seem basically mandatory, so you have to play the huge Fiendsmith engine because it's just super powerful. You also should play Bahamut Toad, because having the Totally Awesome in the endboard is such a strong endboard piece, and it gives you follow up by adding back the tier cache. Yeah, and the Underworld Goddess is pretty nice going second, as you saw in the replay, so it comes up a decent amount of times going second, especially for board breaking in combination with the Moon of the Closed Heaven. And it's a Light Fiend, and being a Light Fiend is really important because you can use the Underworld Goddess for Requiem. And I also think the Necroku Princess is basically mandatory right now, because it enables so many more combo lines and it always gives you dark access. In the past you had to rely on hard draw a dark monster or try to mill a dark monster, and now it is no longer needed. You always have access to a dark monster with the 1 card combo, and therefore you need to play the Necroku Princess in my opinion. Maybe if you want to side Super Poly, you could cut the Winder and replace it with Garura. But Garura doesn't come up that often, and I think the extra deck should be pretty fine right now. And for the side deck, I'm still testing certain cards, for example Sphere Mode and the Roll Unevenly. Those cards seem pretty strong against Snake Eye and Yubel. In case the opponent doesn't add or Dire's Iris, then we can just clear the entire field with Evenly Match. Also Sphere Mode is such an insane board breaker, and Roll can shut down a bunch of decks that heavily play into Roll with their own Fiendsmith stuff. And in case we play against a Shifter deck, then we can go into Majesty Fiend, because we can switch out this one with Tractors. So we just go Unicorn as a special summon from the hand, and then the tribute summon it for Majesty Fiend. Or we could also use the Shifter in the graveyard of the opponent to banish it for the Bestials, and then use the Bestials as a tribute for the Majesty Fiend. And then other going first cards that I usually like to side in is second Keldo, Heartbeat, Crime, and Skill Drain. So you have a bunch of cards that you can side out, for example the Mulchummy, and the Droplet is also a possible side out going first for cards like Skill Drain, because Skill Drain is just so much superior over Droplet. It negates any monsters on the field, and not only once, it negates any monsters forever. And this deck is kinda able to play under Skill Drain, because Kaleido Heart is such a huge body, and huge bodies plus Skill Drain is a strong combination. And now I want to showcase you a second deck with Dangers instead of Bestials. And Dangers work as extenders against any possible deck, not only against Light and Dark decks. Even though you can banish your own Light and Dark monsters, for example the Engraver, and then bring back the Engraver from the banish pile with the Lacrima. But Dangers in general are also really solid interboards. For example, if the opponent has IP, then we can try to set up 3 bodies with the Dangers, and getting to 3 bodies with the Dangers is really easy, and then we can use the IP from the opponent and our own bodies, including danger monsters, and link summon into Underworld Goddess. And this came up once while testing against Dragon Slayer. So my opponent ended on Adamantipated Dragite, Appaloosa, IP, and the Draco Slayer Synchro, and we just broke the board super easy by summoning 2 danger monsters and then chaining Hafnis to the Appaloosa negate. So we had 3 bodies on the board, made Underworld Goddess. Underworld Goddess destroyed his entire board, and then we had the Goddess into Requiem, and it was basically lethal. And as you can see in this list, we don't play Shadow Beast in the main deck. That means we also do not play Winder, but we play the Pilgrim Reaper instead. So if you want to go for the Pilgrim Reaper combo, then you probably should play this deck with your double shufflers in the main deck, because shufflers are just really strong if you build them with the Pilgrim Reaper. Yeah, and that should be it for the deck profiles. I think I would personally prefer this one, because it's just a little bit stronger, especially with the Winder, and Winder is just such a disgusting floodgate against the opponent. And Bestials can save you against certain FTKs, for example Branded or Gimmick Puppet. Yeah, but I'm still testing and trying to figure out the best ratios for this deck. I hope you enjoyed my combo guide and this is inspirational to you. Anyways, see you next video. Have a nice day. Bye.